The gentleman from Enrico, Mr. Janis.
I rise for the purpose of a motion.
Gentleman may state it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the House. Leroy Roundtree Hassell Sr. was born on August 17, 1955 in Norfolk, Virginia. His father, Joseph, was an assistant high school principal, and his mother, Ruth, was an elementary school teacher and later a social worker in Norfolk. He attended Norview High School, where he was, not surprisingly, a champion debater and was voted by his classmates to be the student most likely to succeed. After graduating from Norview High School, Leroy Hassell attended the University of Virginia, where he also won the Scholar of the Year award. And following graduation from the university in 1977, he attended the Harvard Law School. While he was at Harvard, he served as a recruiter for the admissions office, and he worked on the Civil Liberties Law Review. He was awarded a Rhodes Scholarship, but declined the scholarship for personal reasons, and came back to Virginia, came back to Richmond, and in 1980, he joined the law firm of McGuire Woods, Battle, and Booth here in Richmond, the second oldest law firm in the state and one of the oldest in the United States at the time. Leroy Hassell's legal work focused on commercial and professional liability litigation, and his extraordinary intellect, efforts, energy, and enthusiasm were quickly recognized, and he was selected a partner at McGuire Woods after only 7 years, which was remarkable not only then but now. Leroy Hassell also gave back to the community by way of public service and a variety of civic responsibilities. He served as the director of the Center for the Performing Arts here in Richmond, Richmond Renaissance, the Greater Richmond chapter of the American Red Cross. He also served as general counsel for the Richmond Redevelopment and Housing Authority, and in 1985, only 5 years after returning to Virginia from law school, Leroy Hassell was elected to the Richmond City School Board, where he served as the chairman from 1986 to 1989. In 1989, Leroy Roundtree Hassell Jr. was appointed pro tem to the Virginia Supreme Court by then-Governor Gerald Baliles. At the age of 34, Justice Hassell became one of the youngest jurists to ever be chosen to sit on the Virginia Supreme Court, on the highest court in Virginia. At that time, Governor Baliles said of Leroy Hassell, quote, "He has a wide-ranging intellectual curiosity and an extraordinary amount of energy. I never thought age should be a deterrent at either end of the spectrum. He was someone with whom I had worked and someone who had been recommended, and he had a wide range of legal experience and a commitment to the law," unquote. On February 1st of 2002, Leroy Roundtree Hassell became the first African-American to be named Chief Justice on Virginia's Supreme Court. At the time, here's what Chief Justice Hassell said, quote, "I do not wish to serve, however, because I happen to be black. Rather, I desire to serve because I am a Virginian by birth who has a strong affection and love for the Commonwealth and its people." Over his time on the court, Justice Hassell developed a well-earned reputation as a reasonable and fair jurist. He was considered a moderate and a consensus builder whose perspective has been especially valuable in cases involving various forms of discrimination. Justice Hassell was also renowned for his even-handedness in judicial matters and in his dealings with his fellow justices. On a personal note, Leroy Hassell was my constituent. For some years now, it's been apparent to most of us that Justice Hassell was courageously engaged in a battle against a deadly and debilitating disease, but he bore that fight with discretion and grace and dignity. He didn't mention his disease. In fact, his colleagues didn't know what the disease was, and it's never been made public. He bore that fight with grace and dignity. In fact, I had the singular honor last month to attend the Virginia Bar Association dinner in Williamsburg with the gentlewoman from Fairfax, Ms. Watts, at the meeting on January 21st. The bar presented Justice Hassell with the Distinguished Service Award. This would be Leroy Hassell's last public appearance, and it was apparent to all who were present there that he had to muster a significant amount of heroic strength and courage just to appear that night. He was physically struggling just to be present on the stage. But when he rose to speak, even in that condition, he offered brief but cogent remarks in accepting the reward. Characteristically concise, logical, and well-organized remarks, and he worked without any notes. He had a command presence. He had a charisma about him even then as he struggled just to be able to stand on the stage and speak. He spoke with clarity and concision, as was his manner all his life, of the importance that God and his faith had played in his life and in his career. He thanked his children and his wife, Linda, for their steadfast friendship, love, and support over the years that he served on the bench. Though the ballroom was filled with a host of veteran attorneys, a virtual who's who list of jurists from around Virginia, it was filled up with people who were conditioned by their profession to be surgically detached, to be objective, to be cynical. I feel it's safe to say there was not a single heart who heard Leroy Hassell speak on January 21st who was not, no matter how hardened they had been made by their profession, there wasn't a single heart that was left unmoved by his remarks. I'm not ashamed to say I wept with pride for such a great man when he gave these remarks on January 21st. Leroy Hassell personified the words of a professor from Virginia, Professor Leslie Buckler, who in 1932 said the following, that those alone may be servants of the law who labor with learning, courage, and devotion to preserve liberty and promote justice. Mr. Speaker and members of the House, the Commonwealth of Virginia has lost an intellectual giant with a servant's soul. Leroy Roundtree Hassell has been summoned to the court of the highest judge, the author of all justice. As he appears before that bar, may he hear the final verdict, well done, my good and faithful servant. And so, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of myself and the gentleman from Norfolk, Mr. Alexander, I move that when the House adjourn today, it adjourn in the honor and memory of Leroy Roundtree Hassell.
The gentleman from Henrico, Mr. Janis, moves that when the House adjourn today, it adjourn in the honor and memory of Chief Justice Leroy Roundtree Hassell. As many as favor that motion will please rise. That motion is agreed to.